A very good evening to you. Welcome to another episode of Man Up. In your corner ya wanaume, this is where men sit and have conversations about things that are affecting men in this generation, and not just talking about them, but also finding solutions to the problems that men are facing today. This episode, we talk about men and depression. Depression has become quite a huge thing, not just in this country, but globally, with so many people facing depression, suffering from depression, bringing about other complications in their lives, and it's just chaotic, if I would use that word. When you think about countries with the most depressed people in Africa, Kenya is ranking fifth. Fifth. And this is talking about numbers of depression that have been diagnosed. We have a lot more people who are suffering with depression and they're not even aware of it. They have not been properly diagnosed. And so the numbers could be even more than the statistics are telling us. So why is it that more people in this generation, especially men, are suffering with depression? What solutions are available? How do we navigate through all this? This week, I've got two amazing gentlemen joining me in studio, and of course, our studio audience to help us with this conversation. First and foremost, I want to introduce Pastor Arnold Orono. Mchungaji, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Good to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
Karibu sana.
Asante, nashukuru.
We also have Ian Wekesa with us this evening. Ian, how are you doing?
I'm amazing.
Karibu sana. You're amazing.
Amazingly awesome.
It's good to have you. Pastor, let me begin with you. I'm wondering, because when I think back to when I was growing up, issues of depression were not common.
Yeah.
But today, it is such a common thing, it's unbelievable. Why do you think more and more people in this generation, especially men, are dealing with issues of depression?
I think one of the reasons is because things have changed. Life has changed. It's become more complicated. It's become more demanding. There's a lot of pressure on being a man right now than it was before.
Okay.
I think like many years ago, if you didn't get a job, for example, you just go Gishagi and live the rest of your life in Gishagi. But these days, if you don't get a job, you're considered a failure. If you don't make it in life, there are certain standards that society has placed, and attaining to those standards sometimes can be a bit difficult. So one of the things that has happened is life has become very, very demanding. It's become more complicated. The challenges I think our parents' life was more simplistic. So all those complications, I think, those are contributing to some of the situations that we're in. Of course, some of this pressures also comes from media, social media. We have a situation where everybody's looking like life is good. Everybody is with their hot chick or hot side mama. And it is making you look like if you're not married, you're wondering why am I not married? If you're married, you're wondering did I marry the wrong person? And so on and so forth. So I think those are some of the things that contribute to where we are today.
Okay. Ian, for you, this is something that is so familiar because you suffered depression. What's your story? What got you to that place?
It's actually very funny because it started in 2014 when I joined campus in my university, Eldoret.
Yeah.
And that was a long way from home. So I was in a new environment, far from home, far from the little friends I had, because back then I was an introvert. Being the introvert I was very lonely. So I used to crave for attention. So when I got to campus, I was lucky enough to be approached by these two ladies when we were making the line to book rooms. They became my friends. Then during our conversations, one told me how the house has 7 bedrooms. The other told me it has 5. True or false, I do not know, but I believed it. But me coming from a 2-bedroom home, I was afraid that if I told them the truth, they might let go of me. And I didn't want to lose them. So I said best to lie.
So how many bedrooms did you give yourself?
For me, bedrooms are not enough. To me, bedrooms are overrated. So I had to be higher than them.
Okay.
Because I was a gentleman. And the man is always the head of the house. Or the head of the group. So I sat down. I put my 3 entities together for a meeting. My creativity, my stupidity, and my childishness. They sat down for a meeting and decided that we live in Western Towers and that we have a penthouse on the top floor. I had to fake a lie to support the lie.
Oh.
And that's the thing about lies. Once you start lying, they just keep coming out. Especially for me. I'm a very creative guy. So when the lies start, I just keep flowing. Longer than the River Nile.
So how did this affect your relationship with them, your relationship with yourself?
Back then I had no relationship with myself. Because I didn't have any self-awareness or self-love.
Okay.
I was just drifting through life
That's why you're craving for love from
others.
Yeah.
I was always seeking attention.
Okay.
And actually, of late, I've been seeing a therapist who, through her help, has been helping me go back in time with my memories.
Yeah.
And she brought out an issue of validation,
Validation, yeah.
something I've never gotten from my mother. So I've been looking for it from other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is why whenever a lady hit on me, I'll just go with them. Regardless of where they're from, what their intention is, as long as they show me attention, I'll follow them.
You know, Pastor, just listening to what Ian is saying, the thing that comes to mind is issues of self-esteem
Yeah.
Yeah.
and how others perceive you. Like you said earlier, when it comes to men, it's almost like there's like a standard you need to have.
Yeah.
Do you think we're giving ourselves too much pressure?
Yeah, I think we are giving ourselves too much pressure. I think the pressure is also coming from society. Part of the reason it's coming from society is because, prior to this, prior to the show, we were discussing how women have changed.
Yeah.
And that change is not necessarily negative, but you see, the women maybe in the 70s and 80s are not the same as the women today. They're demanding more from their men. And men have not changed at the same rate as women have changed. So the men are still living, in a sense, I don't call ourselves a cake, but the picture we have of manhood is our fathers in the 70s and 80s. But women have a more modern outlook on life. They look at equality. They're saying, no, we must have the 1/3 gender rule. We must have this. There's been a lot of women empowerment, but not enough men empowerment.
Okay.
So that pressure is that it's expected that a man knows what it's like to be a man, but he has not been taught, he's not been trained, he's not gone through the process. And then we're also living in a society where many men are being brought up by women. There's no man in the house to show him and to model to him, this is how you deal with pressure, this is how you handle pressure. So I think it's a myriad of issues. Again, maybe that's why I'm saying it's a complicated thing.
Okay.
But I like what you brought out in your discussion with him, that part of it goes back to the way we view ourselves. That the way we view ourselves is fundamental. Self-esteem, self-value, self-worth, identity is really, really fundamental where this is concerned. Yeah.
Ian, I'm curious, how did the depression then come in?
So I was told by the psychiatrist that the depression set in when I was struggling to juggle that life. Because you see, when I used to spend my pocket money on the ladies, it will all run out one day.
Okay.
And I'll be left without money for food. And ironically, the ladies will leave me the moment the money goes.
Yeah.
And I never noticed they will leave that moment. They'll just give some excuses that I will believe. Because I was desperate for them, so I'll believe anything they say.
Yes.
So since I had no money for food, I'll be left surviving on uji alone.
Uji.
Because I used to carry flour from home. So I'll have uji for breakfast, lunch, and supper. Imagine surviving on an appetizer.
Until the next pocket money comes in.
Yes. So then I repeat the cycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pasi, back to the whole conversation about outlook in society. I'm thinking about comparison because as men, if we are honest with ourselves, we like to size each other up.
Yeah.
I have a better cheek than you, I drive a bigger car than you. In fact, one of the questions we first ask each other is after we have put our phones on the table, because lazima uone simu ni gani. Kuna zingine uwekagi kwa meza, unaiacha tu kwa mfuko na umezima isilie, because even the ringtone will betray you.
Hata vibration peke yake inasumbua.
Yes. So we ask each other, what do you do?
Yeah.
What can you say about this whole comparison thing?
I think we need to sort of not just demystify the whole story of careers. We need to tell people to cut your coat according to your size, and help people understand that, look, not every one of us is going to stay in Muthaiga. You know, and wherever you stay, you know, your dreams are still valid. I like this. I think they say it's a philosophy from the US that it does not matter whether you're working as a CEO or you're working as a cleaner. The fact that you have a job means that we need to esteem you, we need to respect you because of that. I think in the African society, maybe because of a lot of poverty, we're struggling with a lot of poverty, the jobs to be esteemed are, you know, are you a doctor, are you a lawyer, are you a CEO, are you run your own organization? And every one of us aspires to be something that we are not. But we need to allow men to be comfortable in their own skins. And I think this goes back to the church. Let me just put that responsibility on the church, where we stop comparing. The fact that Bwana James Okumu drives a Mercedes-Benz S-Class.
Hallelujah. You're a prophet. Yes. Prophets are man of God.
and I drive a bicycle, you know. That, you know, we need to move away from that. And we need to tell people, look, be comfortable where you are. If that's the place that God has put you, settle, you know, learn to accept that that's where you are. If you can be better, please be better. But if not, be comfortable in your own skin. You know, your manhood is reflected in your influence, in the impact that you have on your family, and the impact that you have on the world around you. And some of these people who drive bigger cars and, you know, live in bigger houses don't necessarily have the same level of influence. They might have no families to show for it. You know, on the outside they look like they are good, but when you begin to put their lives under the microscope, you discover that they also have their own issues that they are struggling with.
Very, very true. Ian, I'm curious, because you talked about going to a psychiatrist. At what point do you look at your life and you figure out something is wrong, I need help? Is there something that triggered? Were you advised to go talk to a psychiatrist? How did that happen?
That actually happened in 2017, when I was just getting to 4th year. Because back in those days, luckily I'd gotten a girlfriend, who of course hit on me. Yeah, so we were living together in her room. Yeah.
In campus?
Yes. Her hostel room. Yes. In 2017 December, my ex told me that I started displaying some crazy behaviors, like stealing girls' clothes from the hanging lines.
Stealing girls' clothes?
Yeah, because I was in the girls' hostel. So I'd go down to the hanging lines, pluck off their clothes, and hide them. I would abuse people randomly, verbally. And she even told me of this episode where she had taken me to the market to buy clothes, and apparently I was trying to remove my clothes in public to fit in new ones.
Oh.
So when she noticed those crazy behaviors, she called my mother, who told her to put me in my tattoo to come to Nairobi, where my mother took me to Avenue Hostel, Parklands, where I was put under observation. Then, after the observation, the doctors came to my mom and told her that I'm displaying some signs of drug abuse. But my mom objected, saying I've never used any drugs. So, to verify, the doctors decided to do a drug test. So I was told that the moment I was given the injection, take a blood sample, immediately my arms and legs became paralyzed.
What?
Yeah.
You couldn't move your hands and your feet?
Yes.
For how long?
I remained in that stage for 4 months, plus the 3 weeks I was admitted in hospital.
Oh. Okay, apart from the paralysis, by the time you're leaving hospital, have they figured out what was happening to you mentally?
So I was diagnosed with this illness, this rare illness called acute organic brain syndrome. It's a rare type of depression.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember Googling about it. And apparently that illness kills people very easily if it's not handled well.
Do they know what causes it?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
And I didn't ask questions.
Okay. So 4 months, you're on the sofa. How did you regain function of your hands and your feet?
It actually came about very gradually. Because after the 4th month, I was told by my mother that my arms and feet started shaking. When my mom noticed, she tried to lift me out to stand. I got hold of the standing up eventually. And when I did, I was given the biggest throwback of my life. Because I started being taught to walk, talk, and use my arms like a child.
Okay.
I went on learning those things slowly by slowly, until I got to this point whereby I'll try walking, but I could not walk on my own. I'll need some support.
Yeah.
Because I was told by my psychiatrist that my mind had not yet gotten hold of coordination. Yeah. So I will need some support. I worked that way for a few weeks until one Saturday morning. I remember I got up that morning, turned on my mobile data, and I got only one message, which was a video sent to my class group, which was very strange because there was no activity in that group for a while. Then suddenly a video is sent. And considering that video had a very large size, it really piqued my curiosity. To the extent that when I pressed for it to start downloading, I just sat on the bed watching it download. Till it finished downloading and I pressed play. And the moment the video started playing, what I saw in that video shocked me to my bones.
Why?
Because what I saw in that video was all my classmates, who I never talked to because I was an introvert, but they were there in that video praying for my healing.
Oh.
Imagine. Tell me if that's not love.
What happened?
That
after-
is love, that is love, that is love.
So what happened to you after you saw the video?
After watching that video, I remember I just put the phone down slowly on the bed, breathed in heavily, breathed out, then jumped up out of excitement. When I landed, I was so sure that I jumped up. I just kept on jumping, screaming out, Ninaruka, Naruka, Naruka. And that's how I got healed from the paralysis.
Amen.
Wow.
Yes.
That's an amazing testimony.
Yeah.
That's an amazing testimony. We are talking about men and depression. And if you have any thoughts or questions, you can always send them in on 20316 for SMS, and WhatsApp is 0786316316. Grab a cup of water. We'll be back to continue with this conversation. What solutions are available? How do we teach, especially the next generation, to handle stress and pressure, which is so much in today's life? So stay tuned.
Tomorrow on This Is My Story, when poverty and lack engulfed their life, Felicia decided to risk it all and venture into the unfamiliar.
I thought it was better to go and work there as a house help and get little money to help back my mom. So I went to Mombasa.
And before long, she was inculcated into the system.
And I found myself not only drinking, but also in prostitution at the same time.
Deep into the bottomless pit and sick, she hoped for the worst.
I'd never wanted to take those medications because I wanted to die.
It's a story of pain, shame, and restoration on This Is My Story, tomorrow at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back to Man Up. Tonight we are talking about men and depression. I'm hanging out with Pastor Arnold Orono, and we also have in studio Ian Wekesa, who's been sharing his story and his journey with us. We also have a studio audience, and I know you guys have some questions you want to throw our direction. So if you have a question, tell us your name and then ask your question.
My name is Onesmus Okali, and my question is, from the conversation we find that pressure is an influence that leads to depression. And we know that as Christians, there is that pressure to live a certain standard, a certain life. Can we say that there are people who are suffering or undergoing depression from pressures in the standards of Christianity?
Pastor, that's a good question for you.
I thought it was Wekesa there.
For you and
Yes, yeah.
Mchungaji. I like what he's saying,
Yeah.
because there's this prosperity angle of the gospel that has been pushed overboard, and so you get to a place where you feel like kama sijafika hapa imani yangu si hebu Pastor, tupatie mawaidha.
Yeah, I've talked to one or two psychologists, and they actually say that there's a big problem in the church where pressure is concerned. Yeah, because the church, we do not face up to the reality of issues. We are so used to hiding things and putting things under the tower, under cover, underground and so on, covering things and so on. And the biggest problem, I think, in the church is that we don't accept weakness. We don't accept, somebody cannot come and tell you, I'm struggling, I'm having issues.
Yeah.
And those are doors that I think the church needs to open up. We need to open up to the fact that if you're having an issue, talk. The Bible says through wise counsel, you'll win a war. So even when you talk about depression, because it's real, and sometimes I believe it's the strategy of the enemy to diminish our manhood.
Yeah.
So we need to develop systems to cope and to handle this issue. I believe in prosperity. I believe in the prosperity gospel. I believe it's important, especially when the nation is struggling economically, talk about wealth creation.
Yeah.
Because if we don't talk about it, how will we do that?
Yeah.
But in the middle of that message, we need to tell the people that we will not all be at the same level.
Yes.
You know, some people have been called to meet with presidents. Other people have been called to run kiosks. You know, find your level. You know, find your level based on what God tells you to do and operate at that level. Don't compare yourself. So if this is your space, be faithful in that space. If God has given you greater capacity, be faithful in that greater
Faithful in that
capacity.
space, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just wondering, Pastor Joe, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Just listening to what Pastor Arnold has said, and one of the things that has been said about men is we don't talk. You know, we keep things to ourselves, especially if it's areas of struggle. And I'm just wondering, could this be working against us, not having spaces where we can talk and share what we are going through, what we are thinking, what we are feeling?
Yeah, you realize that one of the ways that you find solution, the Bible says that where there's men and counsel, you will always find salvation for what you're going through. And you realize that with the African upbringing, that a man should not share, mwanaume ni kujikaza.
Yes.
You know, you're looking for the toughest challenges. You're thinking, okay, I'm a man, I have to persevere, I have to go through this thing. That has been working against us, especially when it comes to our thinking process, how we come up with decisions. You find that because of the pressure to maintain that, you know, manly thing, you make decisions that are not right. You make decisions that cost you. They cost your peace. They cost your happiness with, you know, your relationships with other people. And you realize ni kama niko peke yangu, ni kama nimeachwa nikiwa solo. So from there you go on a spiral. You don't know how to come out of that thing. And I think one of the greatest deceptions that is in the world right now is where you're deceiving yourself that you're okay. Yes. So watu wengi wamejidanganya, I'm fine, but that's a lie. People can see that you're not okay. You've been missing church. You've been missing fellowship. Tukipiga simu aushiki. Ukiulizwa unaendeleaje, niko tu. Kwanza mtu akishakwambia niko tu, please follow up that guy. They could be in a mess.
I'm just wondering for this younger generation, with all the stress and pressure that life comes with today, what are some of the things that young men are doing to cope with the pressure? Because you need an outlet. You know, what are young men doing in this generation? Onesimus.
I had this conversation with one of my Fusion members on Sunday, and I was telling him, bro, we are doing a lot as young men. Do you think that we're just taking in a lot and we're just trying to make that money, live that life? Are we just putting a lot of pressure on ourselves for no reason? And he was telling me, Onesimus, sometimes you really have to sit back and start defining things for yourself, and then you just know yourself very well. And one of the things that I found him doing, and also I do, is going for exercise and running, and then you clear out your mind. You see? And then even that thing that I did with him, just sitting down and talking with guys, hey Sam, what do you do? How's your life going? And you tell, it's okay. How was work? How was yesterday for you? Like, how did it go? Is there something? How do you handle your challenges? How do you do it? And then you can also tell them, okay, you can do this. You can sit down, let's have a manly talk.
Ian, back to your story, because as you shared earlier with me that the depression led to something else. Talk to us a bit about that.
So, I got healed from the paralysis and the depression entirely. Because God answers exactly what you pray for. But what I didn't know is that bipolar will come after. Yeah. Actually, no one knew.
So at what point do you realize that you have bipolar?
After I got healed from the depression, I was an introvert before.
Yeah.
But the healing came with the extroversy.
Okay.
And I started talking. And initially my voice was very loud. Okay, it's still loud, but it was louder. So one day I was just walking around home talking to my friend. After finished talking to my friend, a certain doctor in a certain clinic at home called out to me. I went to her and she told me, young man, I can tell you have a problem. I'll give you the number of a doctor in Kangemi Center. I want you to go and see him. I can see the doctor, and he's the one who diagnosed me with bipolar.
Okay.
Yeah,
How has this changed your life?
drastically. Because with the loud voice has come a lot of stigma and discrimination.
Okay.
Even remember, there's this time, one of my classmates invited me for an interview at Nature Kenya. It was a networking interview. And me, after I got healed, I started doing a self-study course on networking, using YouTube tutorials, because I was tired of being useless. So I decided to do something with my life.
Yeah.
And I was really focused with it. I remember my mom even noticed. She even bought me notebooks to write my notes. So I had a gist of networking. Emphasis on the hard. So I went for the interview. I was just asked to name the different parts of the network. I named everything correctly. And my friend told me that I've passed. So in my excitement, I talked loudly with excitement. I got to there knowing I've passed the interview. Then my friend later on called me and told me, hey, you passed the interview. But my boss doesn't like noisy people. He doesn't like noise. So I was like, Kubali. And that's how I lost the job.
Okay.
Imagine.
What about interacting with your friends? Did that change? Because now it's like your personality has changed. Because you said earlier on, when you joined campus, you were an introvert.
Yeah.
But as we can see, you're not an introvert anymore. So how did that affect your relationship with your friends?
Okay. Most of them were excited that they knew me. Because everyone told me I was very boring before.
Oh.
Because, let me tell you something. I asked everyone how I was before, and everyone gave me the same description. Apparently, it was the guy who always walked with the earphones in his ears, with a hood on his head, coming with sunshine or rain. I had a hood, carrying his backpack in his arm, and walking with his head looking down. That's the description they gave me. I never wanted to make eye contact with someone to prevent anyone starting a conversation with me. That was how I was before.
Wow.
So people are excited that they knew me who was actually talking.
Wow. Pastor, we need to wrap up this conversation. And I want us to wrap up this conversation by talking about how do we raise up our young men today to know how to deal with pressure, to deal with rejection, to deal with waiting, because we have such an impatient generation. You know, sometimes I think about life when I was a child and how I was raised up, and I look at my children today. I can't raise them the way I was raised, but how can I help them, you know, to toughen up a bit and to know how to handle disappointments in life, and to know that there'll always be somebody who will be ahead of you and there's somebody behind you. How do we do that? And the place of the church in this conversation.
Wow, okay. I would start by giving them my story, you know, my challenges, the times I've succeeded, the times I've failed. I know sometimes as fathers, you want to always tell them the positives. You know, I was always number one in class. I never failed. I never had a
supplementary. And I used to walk to school.
Yeah, but I'll talk about my story. I think it first starts by looking inside. I'll talk about my story. Number two, introduce them to this concept of delayed gratification. You know, that not every time you ask for something will you gratify it, you know. So delay it a bit, you know, just okay, we'll do it next month, but once, so that they learn the whole aspect of patience, you know, and so on and so forth. And then obviously now the church, you know, finding a church that reflects your values. That is not too extreme, because I think sometimes churches are have extremes where we believe in prosperity, and if you're not prospering, there's something wrong.
Something wrong with
there's
you.
Something wrong with you.
Your faith is weak.
Yes. You're not believing God, you know. Find a church that sort of understands that sometimes life is a journey. Life goes through, Psalms 23 is one of my favorite Psalms in this season. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That there are times when you'll walk through deep darkness. There are times when you will have no, you know, it's like you have no light, as it were. But even then, you need to be aware that God will be with you in the middle of that. Those are some of the things that I would do, you know, and that I am in the process of doing. Of course, maybe if you ask my daughters, they'd give you a different story. But
I love what Pastor has shared, and that's what I want to wrap up the show with. Because personally, one of the things I've realized is, as a man, when you know God and you're walking with God, just that, you know, will protect you from some of these issues, you know, like depression, you know, because you have somewhere you can go to. When you read the Word of God, you know, it reminds you who you are. It reminds you of the God you have believed in. When you have fellowship, like Pastor Joe has said, you know, with other men, they're able to encourage you.
Yeah.
Pastor, you've shared about your group. You know, you recognize Allah. Even you, you've gone through that. Even you. Then I'm not unique. If you went through it and you succeeded, so will I. You lost your job. You were thrown out of your house. And here you are, living in your own house now. It gives you the encouragement. So men, all of us should join Liverpool. You should never walk alone. My time is up for Man Up this evening. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night and God bless you.